Well, g'day everyone. I hope you're well, and thanks for joining us for another episode of CyberWins. Today we are shipping 25% more code than ever. Yet, some people say our systems are getting even less stable. My guest today argues that we are vibe coding our way to architectural debt, and the only way to one time for the intro. Well, g'day, I hope you're well, and thanks for joining us for another episode of CyberWins. It's a pleasure to have you on. Now, some people say that we're shipping 25% more code than ever, yet our systems are getting even less stable. A concerning thought. My guest today argues that we are vibe coding our way into architectural debt, and the only way out is to build a platform that heals itself, like the medical pods in Elysium. I hope I'm pronouncing the name of that movie right. Nik, it's wonderful to have you on today. I really appreciate the time that you've spent. I know you're very busy. If you wouldn't mind just giving us a quick overview of who you are, that'd be great.
Thanks, Hayden. And I think that intro was on the money. It was perfect. So Hayden, in terms of my current role, and firstly, I wanted to preface by saying today what we are going to share, and particularly what I'm going to share, it's my opinions, not my employer's opinions. With that, I'll quickly introduce myself. So I'm Nik Jain. I'm Chief Technology Officer for Dynatrace in Australia and New Zealand. And we've got a very solid construct here in terms of our business operations. We've got a lot of ASX 200 customers. The objective behind my role and function is to work with our top 20 customers, their chief information officers, their CTOs, chief AI officers, and GMs, and work on the strategy and a multi-year roadmap on how to transform their operations, their application security and business analytics. And to that end, we've got accounts team, we've got marketing team. I represent the solutions team and the technology group within Dynatrace. And in terms of my background, I used to be a BFSI developer many years ago, coming up to almost 20 years. I started by coding loan origination, collection management systems for banks. And over the years, got introduced to the world of resilience and how do you observe applications. And then cloud came, and now we are looking at AI. So the game is the same, but the situation keeps changing. But that's what I do, and it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. It's funny you mentioned resilience. That's coming up more and more frequently. This is a fairly new show, but almost every person I've met is talking about resilience, either from an operational point of view or from a cybersecurity point of view. And so it's almost like we understand that we can't mitigate every issue that is going to come up. It's really about changing the mindset to figuring out how, when something potentially does go wrong, we can be more resilient. So it's funny that even just in your intro, you're echoing some of the things that the other people who we've had on this call have spoken about in detail. So it definitely provides some validation that that's the way we're going, which I think is awesome. Now, the name of this show is called CyberWins, and I'd love to ask you, Nik, about a cyber win that you've experienced recently that makes you kind of think, okay, maybe we are going in the right direction here. What's a good story? There's so many bad stories or scary stories. We want to know the good stuff.
Yeah, I'll share a good story. I was recently a part of an event, and I came across a fantastic story. I obviously can't name them because they haven't given me permission to mention them publicly, but it's a large payments business and credit line business across Australia and US. And what amazed me is the maturity some of these businesses have brought into their cyber practice. So, we got started by talking about what's new in their world. And they were sharing with me that they are playing with agentic operations. And agentic operations, it sounds like a buzzword, but it's the good old spin on self-healing. I want to self-heal systems. And in my introduction to this podcast, you talked about medical pods. Imagine applications are likened to humans. Humans go and sit in a pod and they come out better, healthier. So why not apply the same concepts for applications, whether they are agentic applications, whether they are hybrid cloud or on-premise systems? So the good cyber story I want to share with you is now companies like the ones I mentioned, and they have billions of dollars of payments that happen in a given week, and even more in a given month. Just delivering those payments securely isn't enough. You want to be able to do that at scale. But you must have heard of Murphy's Law. Something is always going to go wrong. So expecting that something could go wrong and training your procedures, your people, your tooling strategy, your operational design in order to deliver resilience in the face of a problem, whether it's a security problem or a operational problem, which typically gets categorized as incidents, it's a great methodology to adopt. And the win I'm seeing is companies are already running hundreds of workflows. So let's say a brand new vulnerability comes our way. It gets registered on NVD, which is the vulnerability database that sits on GitHub. It gets posted on there. With the right tooling, you can pick them up within 15 minutes. You can then scan your environment in terms of live risks that expose your workloads to the internet. And these are the same workloads that have sensitive databases or data sets in their periphery, in their neighborhood. And now what I'm seeing is companies are able to detect there's something brand new which puts their business operation at risk. They then run a sophisticated workflow to start patching. And this ties in neatly with the doomsday forecast. And I don't know if I should put it gently, that comes with Claude Mythos and the Project Glasswing story.
Yeah.
But I'll stop there. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of a positive spin on how companies are responding and how they are building better systems with their people and technology.
It's an interesting mix, that people and technology part, right? Like a resilience from a human point of view and like, what do you do when X happens, but also building in the technology to be able to help facilitate that and prepare for that. I fully agree. And a lot of other people who I've spoken to do as well, that we are starting to see a change in the tide towards that resilience phase, not just spending every bit of effort, blocking every port on the firewall or whatever it is to stop someone getting in, realizing what can happen, and actually doing some planning to help with that. I'm glad you said that. It's validating it for me, so that's awesome. Now, I really like the Elysium Medical Pod thing. Walk us through when you kind of realized that the medical pod, Elysium Medical Pod, it's not just sci-fi, but kind of a requirement for modern SRE. How do we treat code like a patient in one of these medical things? How does that function?
Yeah. I mean, as soon as you start touching on this topic, the hair on the back goes up, metaphorically, because your compliance teams, your data security teams, even executives, they worry that there always needs to be a human in the loop, human as the approval gate. But when you do that, you break the self-healing concept and you make it somewhat self-healing, but I'm still waiting for human to approve.
You're talking about no ops here, right? Is that what that is? Yeah.
Now, I think ideally what we want to do is start with low-hanging fruit, things that you have full autonomy in terms of delivering corrective outcomes. You've got full autonomy as a cyber team or as a SRE team or an application owner, and you want to start there. And what I've seen is for those companies who have a very strong procedure around how you want to fix a problem, prevent a problem, reduce noise, they're starting with, I'm going to self-heal my infrastructure, kind of like that patient in a medical pod. And I feel it's not at all an exaggeration. In fact, this was one of the areas that were begging to be disrupted for the longest time. But I saw the convergence happen as soon as Gen AI, the workflow sophistication, and the ability to make the right decision, all of these three things converged. You start with the low-hanging fruit, which is let's self-heal infrastructure. Let's avoid issues or cascading failures that stem from resourcing problems. And you slowly move up the stack.
Mm.
Go towards your users, go towards your AI workloads, and start doing the same thing on upper stack things like your applications or your user experiences or support requirements. So I feel that's how we can practically adopt it.
Great. It's a fun time to be working at. Well, I think it's fun sitting on the outside. Like I don't have to do any of the things that you've got to do. But it just seems to be a fun time to be in the IT business. But I suppose every generation's had their. It's a great time to be in the business kind of feeling, I suppose. Now, moving away from tech for a sec, you talk about high impact team building. What is the quality, or what are the qualities that you looked for in your Super 11? Maybe perhaps things that traditional hiring rubrics would miss. And tell us about your Super 11, by the way.
Yeah, I love this question because often we focus purely on technology themes, and people management is another area that required a lot of disruption. And I often try to really understand who I'm going to be working with, who's going to be operating for our business. And what I realized is to build a high impact team, the first critical part is their goals need to be crystal clear. Like my
Mm.
name, I know my name inside out. I know uh, other personal information inside out. So you got to take the same concept with why are you here? What are your goals? And when you have multiple teams coming together to deliver a customer outcome, there needs to be goal alignment between those teams. But focusing for a second on my own house and own team, the other thing I try to find out is beyond their technical skills, beyond their interpersonal skills, I think those are table stakes,
Yeah, yeah,
particularly in the age of AI,
yeah.
where AI can do as good or even better reasoning than you and I, and it can guide you with better ways of conversing. I think you want to look for adaptability and curiosity. Those are things you can't teach. It's either in your mindset or not. And the fifth critical component for high impact team building is like we operate in the tech world, DevOps, we're releasing multiple times a day, multiple times an hour, depending on the team philosophy and the type of product. You want to do the same with your team members and give them immediate feedback, but always start by asking feedback. And I feel people are too worried about giving feedback. And there were sandwich model.
Yeah.
I don't agree with the sandwich model. You want to be sensitive. But the last thing I want to share there is why not adopt the sports mentality? In sports, it's okay for the coach to observe and say, hey,
Yeah.
what happened there? But in business, it becomes taboo. So we have to build the right mindset to be able to borrow the coaching mentality from sports and bring it into business and tech. I'll stop there, but hopefully that does justice with that question.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the sports analogies. I get that immediately. It's interesting. Giving and taking feedback can be taboo like that, but it's funny. You also hear around the water cooler. Oh, I wish this would be more like that, or I wish this team would do that. Like maybe you can just tell them.
Yeah.
If you want that to happen, maybe just have a human adult conversation. But gosh, baby steps, baby steps. Now, I've heard that obviously I mentioned it in the introduction that our volume of coding releases is increasing, but we're having issues with stability. So is AI doing things for us in terms of the coding? Is it making us faster at building worse software? I've got two projects that I'm vibe coding at the moment, and they're about 30,000 lines of code in there. The longest bit of code I had written before AI came along was like about 1,000 lines. So, I mean, perhaps the things that I'm vibe coding is better than what I was regular coding. But tell us about that as a trend. So are we getting good stuff out of it yet? Is it not there yet? Will it ever be there? What do you think?
Yeah, so this is I personally feel this is a loaded topic. And in all fairness, I think AI is doing two or three things, and I want to categorize them. If you use AI the right way, it is helping ship better code faster. But I think and I'm on a couple of university boards, and I'm helping some of the universities design practical education for today and tomorrow. And there's a big component in there for being able to do things the hard way, the traditional way. And when you understand how code was built traditionally, you will be able to do justice when code gets built autonomously. And the same principle applies to testing, operating this newly built feature that sits within your customer application or mission critical workload. Now, that's not the reality. The reality is it's a mixed bag. So some teams have built AI SDLC processes, and they are doing better job of building code, testing, and observing because they are following the good old principle, having experts run that process. The new startups, and even within pockets, within well-established companies, a lot of vibe coding is taking place. And what we are pushing into production, even we don't understand. And that is a recipe for chaos. This is where the observation tools and the process needs re-engineering. And I think this is a massive opportunity for solution vendors out there, but even for leaders to be able to find the champions within the industry or within their enterprise and have them lead the program together with them.
Maybe that's the thing. Like, it's probably not something that's going away, and there is certainly utility that's coming out of some of these vibe coding projects that are going on. Perhaps not if they're completely vibe coded. I don't know. Don't worry, I'm not releasing any enterprise software anytime soon with the things that I've made. But that's interesting. Maybe it's something that technology will help us adapt to. I've heard people say, well, where is SaaS going to go when with a few prompts I can build a tool? But I think that's it's not something that if I was starting a SaaS company, a proper big SaaS company now, I don't think I'd be too scared about people like me out coding their product teams. Where probably, I never book in these meetings for long enough time. I wish I had put 2 hours in your books, but we're probably running a little bit short of time now. So let me just look through here. In fact, I'm just going to pause the recording. So our last question for the day, and we need to catch up for a part two, as I say, to probably all of my guests. So you have done 3,307 push-ups for mental health in 24 days. If you had to identify the single most vulnerable part of the modern enterprise's mental health, its tech stack, what is it, and how do we help heal that? What do you think?
Ooh, I think I've got a clarifying question to ask here. And maybe we pause the recording and
Sure.
then we'll go again.
Okay, so probably only time for one more question today, unfortunately. And it's away from the technology for a second. So you have done 3,307 push-ups for mental health in 24 days, a feat in and of itself. If you had to identify the single most vulnerable part of the modern enterprise's mental health, what is it and how do we heal it?
Yeah, so I think you dissect any enterprise and the type of situation that exists within that enterprise is you will have adaptable, curious, always learning, the front running pool of contributors. And you want to channel more of that behavior. But on the other hand, you've got a second pool of individuals who tend to doubt any technology shift, that impacts them and impacts the business. And I think it's important to build champions within that pool. They will eventually come to the party, but you have to kind of push them. And some of the great leaders I have the privilege of working with, they call it 40-40-20. So they say every now and then, as technology shifts happen, as the market changes, 40% people will grab it, run with the new theme. The next 40% you will have to upgrade, support, nurture, grow. And the last 20%, unfortunately, you will have to transform. And what that means is you will need to create efficiencies and inject new champions. So I think if you look at the enterprise as a whole, we really need focus on adaptability, curiosity, a learning mindset. And I think AI is a great opportunity for creating balance. And Hayden, maybe a topic for our next catch up. I'll show you on my personal Claude instance how I'm able to tick all my other goals, time with family, planning holidays, ideas for spending more time with my son. But even outside my role, I like to keep executive connections, build a LinkedIn brand, and I'm able to take all those goals right now. In the pre-Gen AI era, I felt like I was always catching my tail.
Yeah.
But now it's creating more time. But hopefully, that answers the question. It touches on a few different segments. Yeah, I think it's fantastic when these changes come, and all we got to do is make our people more curious, adaptable, and continue to support them in the best possible way.
Wonderful. Well said. Well, Nik, thanks very much for your time. I appreciate it. And I am looking forward to episode 2. So thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Cheers.
Thanks for having me.